Let's talk about a subject that is a thorn in my ass for
Don't dare.
I promise you, the last about 10 years. Now, let me tell you,
Mm.
I worked at Starbucks for about 4 years. No,
You
about
did?
4 years. I'm sorry.
Really? You worked
Yes,
at Starbucks? Oh.
I worked at Star. I started as a barista. I worked in Chicago on Oak and Rush. It was the biggest Starbucks in Chicago. Amazing. I worked as a barista for about 2 months, and then they saw my prowess, and they was like, "Oh, you need to be a manager." So I became a manager there, and it only took me like 2 to 3 months, and it was a great experience. We used to have these tip jars. Okay, we're talking
Mm.
about tips, y'all. We used to have these tip jars where people would just leave their money in the tip jar, but
Mm.
now they have the actual pin pads that you have to put a tip on. And so my question to you is: is it out of control? Because you with these tips now, because you have to tip for everything. You walk into a store and they on the pin pad, tip, tip, tip. You walk into Whole Green, tip, tip, tip. You walk into Starbucks, tip. You walk into you know the Cold Stone tip. Everything's about a tip, and it's annoying because it's uncomfortable. Number one, it's uncomfortable when you walk into a store to buy a soda. I mean a coffee for $3, and it's asking you to give a 30% tip. A dollar tip or
Mm.
whatever, and you feel you feel a certain kind of way because your son, your daughter, or you understand the flight of retail or the flight of customer service. So you try your very best to give a tip, but is it out of control, Rodney?
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
honestly,
pass out of control, hands down.
do you feel guilty
I
when you
think
don't?
no, I don't, because it's a choice. It's like a multiple
You
question.
said that fast.
Yeah, no, I don't give a no. I decide who I tip. I mean,
Okay.
it's my discretion. I'm a good tipper when it goes to restaurants and stuff like that. Clearly, I like to take care, especially if you're going to a restaurant repeatedly as a guest. You always want to treat your waitress or your staff, people who are doing good things and a lot of work. Tip, fine. But
Hmm.
if I'm going to the yogurt store and there's a 15-year-old who's already making $15 an hour at the register, and all she has to do is type a few things and swivel that thing around, and I'm
Hmm.
already self-serving myself, then why am I tipping you? I don't get it. That doesn't
Yeah,
really make any sense.
yeah,
I think gig economy a job should always be tipped, like door dashing, Uber Eats, all that kind of stuff. Like those people are using their vehicles, so and they're driving long distances and paying for gas and stuff. Those people should be tipped. Yes, delivery service for sure should be tipped. Uber, tip them. You know what I mean? Like those are jobs that are also costing them money out of their pocket to help you drive you around and stuff. But
right.
you know, making I was a barista too. I don't think like unless you are in these baristas that are like doing like coffee designs and
Hmm.
you're in a shop where they're taking their time and you know what I mean and actually crafting you a drink. But otherwise, like I don't no.
But you know
I
what?
think it's up to your
You know a
discretion
reason why
too.
I tip them. A good reason why I tip Starbucks when I do, even if I just go in and buy, get a banana piece of banana bread, whatever, and I'll still give them tip. They have the most exceptional customer service. Okay, everybody don't have great customer service that warrants a tip, but Starbucks has the most
Yeah,
incredible
and I think
customer
that's up to your
service.
discretion. Like if there's a place that's always giving good service, you always want to give a tip for that because you're in a place that makes you happy and then gives you the product that you're asking for. You know what I mean? And I think that's awesome. But I mean, like, I don't think people should ever feel pressure to tip. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, it's you go to Europe and stuff, and they don't really have these kind of cultures. So, you go to Japan, you don't tip in Japan. They actually are like they think it's offensive. So,
Yeah.
um, I think I think it's going to die off eventually because obviously
No, everybody. I'm
minimum
telling you.
wage and everything is going up. You can't make. I mean, like $15 an hour. You're making more money than most. I mean, and like I couldn't even for to make $15 an hour at that age. So, like so like I think like that it's going to slow down eventually. Places like when you go to Vegas and stuff like that, they live off tips and stuff like that, but then they're also taxing their tips. So
Yeah.
I think it's a culture is going to die off. We'll see, but I don't think people should be pressured to tip. Like I think it's up
But
to your
do you think
discretion.
the companies, because remember, Starbucks was probably one of the first people, of course, restaurants did it, but Starbucks was one of the first, food service, companies that decided to put their tips out there where, hey, we're going to pay you $7, but
Were
guess what?
they really?
Yes, one of the first, because I remember no one else was doing tips anywhere. And now, like I say, if you go to any store or any fast food joint, it's right there. Even gas stations sometimes it's right there. Tip, you know, dollar tip, $2 tip, whatever. And it's just like, dude, y'all doing way too much. If y'all would just pay y'all people, if y'all would just pay them the adequate amount of money to be able to have, a living wage, to be able to live off of, then we wouldn't even be in this point or this predicament where I'm uncomfortable going into a Starbucks and they'll say, "Hey, it's going to ask you a couple questions," and then they look away. Then they'll look away, and you're just
Hmm.
like, why do I have to be uncomfortable coming in to get a place that's supposed to be a serene place to grab a coffee or even grab a burger or grab ice cream? I have to be uncomfortable because you don't want to pay your people. What
How do
the
you feel
freak?
about when you go to like
What the fuck?
how much how do you feel about when you're like when they ask you to pay for, like, say when you're at the grocery store and they swing it around, they're like, do you want to donate this money to charity? And you're like,
Uh, that's a whole nother thing too. Another
you know
thing
what I
is
mean? They're like, there
I
are
always tell
dogs dying in Africa, and you're like,
when that
no.
happened.
No.
For Africa. But look, when that happened, I tell you, Robert, when that happens, I always ask myself, am I inspired? And I think if you're at home, you should ask yourself. This all you got to ask yourself. Don't feel the guilt of it, even if you're at Starbucks. Ask yourself in that moment, am I inspired to give money to the, breast cancer, to the
Well, I
homelessness?
think also people should do their research, and
Yeah,
we can have a whole nother conversation about the business of charities, but
yeah, yeah.
you'll be surprised about how much of your dollar does not actually go to the
Don't even
cause.
get to that. So,
So
so
they're
that's why,
mostly just they're
yes.
just making money off of you. They're
I
bullshit.
agree. But that's
They're
why you have to
bullshit.
ask yourself, are you inspired? And if you're inspired, give, because it's really not about you in that moment. Give whatever you're going to give and move on with your life. Just move on. Just move on. Don't think about it. They cheat and whatever. Just move on. And I do that when I'm at Starbucks and all these, Cold Stone and all these places when they ask me for the tip. I ask, what do I feel today? Then I just do it. If I do it, but I'm not prodded into, I got to do this because I'm a person on the street and you guys probably don't make that much money. You're doing customer service and sometimes you're doing bad. No, I'm going to give you what I think I want to give you in that moment. And I think
And I
everybody
also
should have their ownership.
I, I believe that tips should also be, it's a personal interaction too that you're having if you're getting service. Like when I go buy cannabis, I'm having a personal interaction with the person who's selling me cannabis. You know what I mean? They're going to like bring out some strains. I get to smell it. They're going to explain some things to me. I'm asking questions. I'm taking up their time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's like, you deserve a tip.
Mhm.
You educated me. You're dropping some knowledge on me about the product that I'm about to
Yeah.
buy. You deserve a tip. However, Starbucks is like McDonald's at this point.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you're not doing anything out of the blue, that you're just following directions. Like you want a latte. Okay, go
Yeah.
steam the milk, go put the espresso in, hand it to me.
Yeah.
That does not deserve a tip.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just to me.
So just for,
However, if there's a barista at the Starbucks that you constantly have a relationship with, you're talking to, you feel, you know what I mean? Like that's up to your discretion. But I don't think people should be pressured or feel guilty for not tipping. We need to move on from that. That's just like,
yeah, just move on, people.
yeah,
So what you got to do?
people are
So
getting
if
paid
you
pretty
guys,
good wages in some places.
yeah.
That they don't really need tips,
Yeah,
but
you don't want to bother your customers. You want your customers to have an amazing time at your establishment. So stop asking for the freaking tips. Period. Okay. So I want to ask you guys at home, if you guys give tips, and if you give tips, why? I really want to know, why do you give a tip, especially sometimes, because sometimes the customer service is really horrible. I just want to know if you give tips. Okay? Let us know in the comments. Cut.